How would you define an eating disorder? Eating disorders can look a lot of different ways. Classic anorexia, bulimia, a combination of the two, binge eating disorder. The National Eating Disorder Association, NEDA, they have a great website to give information for that. The eating disorders are also classified in the DSM 5.
There's a lot of different contributing factors that go into what causes an eating disorder. I think one of the biggest things that's really important to hold on to is this idea that eating disorders are developed when people start to have a really unhealthy relationship with their body, with food, and or with exercise. And so an eating disorder can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't look like it always does in the movies. And so when people start to feel fearful of food, or when people start to develop a sense of um, urgency or feeling out of control around food, those are signs that maybe their relationship with food has developed into something more disordered. Same with goes with exercise and movement or working out. Things that contribute to someone developing an eating disorder. Eating disorders are a way for people to cope and a way for people to self regulate. So, if you think about your nervous system, we all kind of move along this ebb and flow of like we get activated, then we come back down. So, we go sympathetic, and then parasympathetic within your nervous system. There's a gas and a break. Something happens, I start to get a little activated, and then I come down. For people that experience different things that maybe they don't get to come back down in a safe way. Maybe it's because they don't live in a home that feels really safe. Maybe it's because they don't have secure relationships in their life. There's lots of different reasons. And so then you add like things that happen that maybe are activating or feel scary or overwhelming, and they end up kind of becoming really dysregulated within their nervous system. And so in some ways, food and exercise start to become ways and attempts to try and regulate their nervous system. So there maybe is like, I become really activated, I get triggered, and I'm really overwhelmed. And then I binge, and that helps me start to come back down and feel okay. It's not actually like doing the regulation, but it feels that way. And so eating disorders are an attempt at regulating what feels dysregulated. And again, that dysregulation can start in a lot of different places. Sometimes people have family dynamics that contribute to it. Sometimes people experience trauma like sexual assault or discrimination. There's lots of different things that can add to that. And what that looks like. I think it also looks a lot like of where did you learn about your body? Where did you learn about food? We all have like parents, coaches, teachers that start to teach us at like really young ages about our bodies and about food. And so those are other places where we pick up on messages about what we are supposed to do or what we're not supposed to do. So if we have unhealthy people that maybe have their own struggles around food or their body, teaching us as children or as young adults what to do, or how to treat our body or how to view our body, that's going to have an impact on us, and it's going to impact the way that we respond to our body.
All right, so the next question is, was I born with this eating disorder? So no one's born with an eating disorder, but we do know that there are genetic contributions to the development of eating disorders. So those estimates have been anywhere from 50 to 70% of a genetic contribution to the development of eating disorders. But then there's also environmental factors, there's psychological factors, cultural, biochemical. So it's really a complex picture, and it's hard to identify one specific root cause. But if you do have a family member who struggled with an eating disorder or is currently struggling, that does set you up a little bit more for the risk of developing one. Okay, so this next question is, what are key components of recovery work when dealing with an eating disorder? And that's really going to shift depending on what phase of recovery we're talking about. So, in the beginning, the focus is really on stabilization. So, making sure that someone is medically stable, nutritionally stable, And then really working on coping skills to help manage urges and behaviors, with the focus really being on decreasing those decreasing behaviors. Once behaviors are a little bit more under control, the focus is going to shift more to some of the mental aspects of the eating disorder. So, preoccupation with shape and weight, maybe addressing some like perfectionism, rigidity, impulse control issues. It could also be looking at addressing some of the underlying contributors. So, if there's any anxiety, depression, trauma, or any other kind of co-occurring disorders, that can be helpful to address as well. And then we're also looking at, when we get more towards kind of those later stages of recovery, really focusing on that connection to life. And so building up connection to the things that you're passionate about, increasing social relationships, improving social relationships, really just that connection to life in general. Because the stronger that is, the less likely it is that we're going to move back to the eating disorder, because there's something that we have much more passion about and excitement about. So it really shifts throughout the stages, and it's not always this linear process. So someone might be doing really well with behaviors for a while, and hit a little bit of a rough patch, and behaviors have really increased. So we might go back to focusing more on stabilization. So I think, recognizing that it's not always looking like this, it might look all over the place, but that over time we're moving in that positive direction. So the next question is, if someone in my family has an eating disorder, will I? And I touched on this a little bit in the other question, but there is a pretty strong genetic contribution to eating disorder, so about 50 to 70%. So if someone in your family does have an eating disorder, it increases the likelihood that you would have one, but it doesn't automatically mean that you will, because there are lots of different contributing factors to it.
Will having an eating disorder affect me in my future? It can, absolutely. It can affect you physically, it can affect fertility, it can affect osteoporosis, it could affect electrolyte imbalances. So it definitely can have some physical ramifications, as well as social health and mental health, and just how it impacts your daily life and living when you're controlled by an eating disorder.
Okay, so my next question is, how long is recovery? And this, like a lot of it, is really person dependent. But in general, we're talking more about years rather than months, which I know is not what most people want to hear. So I think, the reality of it is that the earliest part is extraordinarily difficult, and it really is the hardest part. And so I think when someone in those really early stages is hearing, hey, like this is going to take, you know, a year or more, a couple years even, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel this way forever. When it's not like, hey, because I feel this way now, I'm going to feel that way several months from now or a year from now. It's constantly changing, where over time, it typically gets easier and easier and more tolerable, to the place where it's like, hey, this is actually feeling really good right now. I think the surprising thing for people is really like how long body image takes to recover. And that is going to be the last thing to go. So, even once behaviors have completely stopped, we're talking about a couple of years for body image to fully go back to normal. So, again, it's not a fast process, but it's not this like, oh my gosh, this feels terrible the whole time. A lot of times, I think in the beginning, it's like these really big ups and downs, and then it kind of evens out and is more just little waves, until finally someone's kind of reached that place where they're like, hey, I'm recovered, and this isn't really something that I'm thinking about anymore.
If you think your roommate has an eating disorder or is maybe struggling, what should you do? I think the first and probably most important thing is to tell this person in your life that like you care about them and that you're 100% here to support them. I always tell the people that I work with, like, I'm here, I'm in your corner, like, I want to help. I know that sometimes it maybe doesn't always feel that way because it feels scary or it feels overwhelming, but my job is to be able to help you. And so I think really being able to come at it and support someone from a very like empathetic, kind, and loving place. I think being able to say things like, hey, I've noticed a few things and I just want to make sure that you're doing okay. I just want to check in. How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Um, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling depressed? Is there any support that you need? What we want to avoid doing is coming in and saying things like, you don't eat. Why don't you eat? Come on, I'm going to go make you eat. Like that is not going to go over well. That will be disastrous. I always tell people that like the first kind of start to these conversations really should be about the like emotional experience. So like I care about you as a person. I'm really worried about you. What's going on inside? Are you feeling okay? And then if they say like, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Why? Why are you worried? And then being able to say like, well, it seems like, like you're isolating more, you're not going out with us. And I've noticed that maybe when we do go out, you don't eat when we're out. So I think you can like very gently say that. If there's someone that is you're concerned is a danger to themselves or to other people, so is medically really starting to be concerning, if you have any indication that someone might have a desire to hurt themselves or hurt other people, immediately call 911 and get help that way. I think the other thing is like don't try and manage this on your own. If you know someone that's struggling, please go to your local like school resources, reach out to people in the community, therapists, bring people in to support you. Eating disorders can be really tricky and really complicated to treat. And so don't try and like fix it all yourself. That's not your responsibility.